Welcome to a special podcast episode between Boston Public Health Commission's Youth Advisory Board program and Start Strong program. Today, we are going to talk about the connection between unhealthy relationships and substance abuse. My name is Ayani, my pronouns are she, her. I'm 18 years old, and I'm a part of Start Strong.
My name is Dominic, pronouns he, him, age 17, and I'm with the Youth Advisory Board.
My name is Lynn. I go by any pronouns. I'm 19. I'm with the Youth Advisory Board.
My name is Juan. I'm 17, pronouns he, him, and I'm with Start Strong.
Before we begin, let's give our listeners a bit more information about our programs.
As the Youth Advisory Board, we are a part of an initiative through the BPSC Recovery Service Bureau, and our purpose is to teach and promote substance use prevention through Boston. So examples of things the Youth Advisory has done so far is like we're ambassador of the Cope Code Club campaign, which is to find and different coping skills to replace substance use.
Start Strong is a youth program through BPHC's Child, Adolescent, and Family Health Bureau. Our purpose is to prevent teen dating violence in teenage relationships and help teens learn how to properly navigate the relationships that they're in and make sure that they're healthy ones rather than unhealthy, toxic relationships. Examples of things that Start Strong has done, we have an after-school program. We have a school year job. We have a summer job, and we teach kids skills that they can use in order to create healthy relationships with the people around them, and how to teach other people that they might know in an unhealthy relationship to build a healthy one.
Now that we introduce ourselves, let's dive into today's topic. Members, since y'all are the substance use experts here, how does someone know if their substance use is unhealthy?
I feel like substance use can be unhealthy when it like crosses the line of a want to a need. So say for instance, you're just chilling with the bros and you want to have a smoke or take a drink. That's like for recreation practices. But then if you can't do anything, as in like just walking down the street without taking a substance, then that's a problem.
I think you can also tell when it's a problem when, like, you go from using it maybe once a month to every single day, multiple times a day. I think and it's interfering with, like, your schoolwork, your relationships with other people. I think that's when you can tell it's an unhealthy relationship.
I agree. I think that using substances is not always unhealthy for those of a legal age, but I think all substances can have a negative impact on relationships.
Wait, that's me, right?
You just gotta ask the question.
Oh, Start Strong. How can someone know if a relationship is unhealthy or not?
I think there will definitely be signs. I think the way that somebody treats you is a very telltale way to see whether or not your relationship is healthy. I think the way that a relationship makes you feel is a good way to determine whether or not a relationship is healthy, especially a relationship where you don't know what's happening the day after. Like, you might be on good terms with somebody one day, and then the next day they don't want to talk to you, or they're talking to you differently than you would expect them to. And sometimes the way that they treat you is unexplainable, and there's an uncertainty in your relationship. I think if somebody is abusive, that's obviously a sign of an unhealthy relationship. And there are a lot of other factors and other signs that a relationship might be unhealthy, but a lot of them aren't so obvious, and you might not always be able to tell when you're in an unhealthy relationship.
I get what you're saying. It can be like a split personality. Yeah.
Do you guys feel that substances can sometimes become like a bonding activity in a relationship? Like sometimes a relationship might seem to revolve around the substance?
It can be, because I feel like bars and stuff like that are like places people socialize and meet new people. So someone can use substances to like converse with other people.
But do you think that it can sometimes be hard to make a genuine connection with that person if the only thing you're doing with them is like doing substances?
Most likely, yeah, because that person isn't the person they are like on substance. Because they could be, as I'm talking to them in the moment, influenced by the substance and not their actual like mind.
Yeah, and I think that you don't really know if you like that person or you just like the person that they are when they're like doing that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that point because I've seen some of my friends use substances, and sometimes the loudest person in the room when they're sober could be the quietest when they're under an influence, and vice versa. More often than not, the person that you see when they're under the influence isn't the person that they are when they're sober and they're not doing anything.
I feel like you're losing out too because you're not really knowing the actual person. Like you just said, the loudest person in the room is like might be the quietest on substances, and you may not know that. Like he could be the funniest person you ever met, and you wouldn't know that because he's on substances.
Yeah, and also wanting to be with a person so bad, I think that might lead to increased substance use. Like wanting to have that connection with somebody, and even if you might not like do drugs or whatever, but wanting to be close with somebody, it might put that pressure on you to start doing it.
See what you're putting on, but I also feel like that's toxic in a way because you're doing something you wouldn't do just for someone else, which I feel like is not really healthy at all. But as the relationship expert, what do y'all think though?
I think that if you're around someone who is often using a substance and that influences you to use a substance when you normally wouldn't, I think that can lead to an unhealthy relationship because if it's not something you would do on your own and that person is influencing you and you feel like you have to do it for, I don't know, that person's approval or validation or to create a bond with them, you're not going to know the real them and they're not going to know the real you because you're not talking to them sober. They know you when you're under the influence. So who are you when you're not under the influence?
I also think that can create a problem with consent because if you can't consent if you're like on drugs or if you're drunk, like you can't consent. So like I think the lines blur, especially in a relationship because like even if you even if you guys are dating, the one person or both people still have to consent to the sex.
That's a great point to bring up, especially because if that person who uses a substance is pressuring you to use it, that might be them manipulating you or taking advantage of you, and you might be clueless about it. You think they just want you to do it because they're doing it, or maybe it's cool and they're pressuring you to do it so you could fit in, or blah, blah, blah. But then when you're under that influence, you might do something that you probably wouldn't do if you were sober.
Where we at? Do you think that sometimes people can use substances to fill a void in a relationship, especially if the relationship revolves around that one substance?
I think, yeah. I think people do use substances to fill the void, especially if it's an unhealthy relationship. Then they might take drugs to be more happy with themselves and their partner. And it's like when you're on a drug, like there's that dopamine and you're happy, but then once it goes away, then like what they're like thinking, like what is that relationship, and then it'll make them do it again and again just to feel that feeling that they had when they were on drugs.
So you're saying that the substances is like the spark of the relationship?
Yeah.
I agree entirely with you. I think that's why people make it like a bonding activity so they can do it with their partner. So they can just feel that spark together 24/7. I think that's what makes it unhealthy as well.
Yeah, and because to add to that point, because some people do it. I'm not a smoker, but a lot of people are in happy relationships, and both of them might smoke, and they might smoke together pretty often. But I think it becomes unhealthy when two people in a relationship are always smoking together and they're always high together because if your relationship revolves around a substance, I don't think you are attracted to that person more than you're attracted to the substance that you're taking. Because, like I said earlier, you might not feel the same way about that person when you're not on that substance, and that substance might be the thing that is keeping you alive, or not keeping you alive, but the relationship alive. You might become addicted to that substance and stay with somebody thinking you're addicted to that person, and the whole time you're addicted to smoking.
I get what you're saying. I feel like if you're not you didn't use substance before that relationship and you started just because of that relationship, when leaving that relationship, I feel like you're gonna take that behavior and take it to another partner. They might not use the substance, but because of your influence, that's not the case. And you can also basically use it as a way to remember your old partners, which is not healthy as well.
What coping strategies do you guys think that people should use other than substances?
There's a whole lot. So you can play video games, go to the gym, exercise.
I listen to music.
Yeah, I also listen to music.
Yeah, I go to the gym. To add on to that question, why do you think these alternatives might be better than using a substance?
Because it's more healthy. You're feeding your body with positive energy. When you're working out, you feel good. You feel like you're gaining something. Your body is receiving something, whether that be protein, muscle, and stuff like that.
I agree, but I also think that a lot of things become unhealthy when you do them too much. So I think pacing yourself is also a good coping strategy other than doing substances, not doing the same thing over and over again. You can listen to music and then you could go outside and then you can do this. It really takes your mind off things. It's a better alternative than doing substances.
Type.
I think that's a great point, because with anything that you do, no matter what it is, I think there's definitely always a limit to how much you should be doing something. No matter what it is, I think there should always be a moderation, and there are healthy ways. There are definitely healthy ways that you could use substances, and unhealthy ways that you could do things like go to the gym. You could get burnt out going to the gym more than you should, maybe 4 to 5 times a day, and that is probably gonna do more harm than good in the long run. And in the same way, you could use weed or any other substance in moderation and have a healthy relationship with that substance, or you could smoke 5, 6, 7 times a day and build a negative relationship with that substance and abuse it in a negative connotation.
I feel like the lesson to learn here is control, because if you don't have control, then you don't have anything.
But if your friend is in an unhealthy relationship or is misusing drugs or substances, when do you think is the appropriate time to tell an adult?
Right away, because if my friend is feeling low, I don't want that, because he's going to bring that same energy around me, and I don't want that. Instantly, as soon as I see that it's going south, I'm going to try to bring it back to north.
I disagree with that, just because sometimes adults have bad solutions for teenage problems, and things can be resolved in a much simpler way. You could talk to your friend and try to help them through whatever they're going through, try to give them advice on their relationship. But I think it does eventually get to a point where an adult might have to get involved, because you can get addicted to drugs, and at a young age, that's not something that is positive or should be looked at in a positive light, and you could be in a very harmful relationship, and at some point a parent or a guardian might have to get involved for the safety of a teenager.
I agree. I think that you can try to talk to your friend as many times as you want, but if that person doesn't want to listen to you, then there's only so much you can do, because drugs, in substances and even unhealthy relationships, they don't only affect that person, but they also affect the people around you. I think that when you know that it's not going anywhere, I think that's when you should really tell an adult.
Yeah, that's a great point. Addiction is very real, and struggling with an addiction or a negative relationship can make you feel things that will not only harm you mentally, emotionally. You can take those feelings out, whether it's sadness, anger, on the people around you. And I think that's when addiction really gets to its highest point. I think that's when it gets to its most harmful point, when your addiction stems out further than hurting you and you're impacting the lives of the people around you in a negative way.
Wait, real quick.
Oh.
Are you gonna say something?
My voice cracks one more time.
I was just gonna say that I agree. Okay.
That's all the time we have for today. We had a great conversation. If you're struggling with substance use or unhealthy relationships, check out these sources.
The Cope Code Club website, Start Strong website, and call 988 helpline. MA behavioral health helpline too. Yeah, the MA behavioral health line as well.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more,
Check out the Break the Line podcast. Follow us on Instagram and Spotify at Cope Code Club.
and check out Real Love, Real Talk podcast and follow us on Instagram and Spotify at Start Strong or BPHC. Thanks for tuning in.